retaining your raving fan customers as well. To give you a bit of background as to where I've sort of come from, so I sort of spent close to a decade in the corporate world. I got sort of sick of it. I got to a point where I soon realized that I was just helping my employer build his own dreams. And I realized that the faster way to create wealth was not being an employee. It was just going to be, creating a living. And I didn't want to just have a living where I was living for the weekends. And so I made that shift into looking at how I become a business owner. And I know I'm talking to the converter, and you're all a small business sort of networking group. And so I know you know some of these concepts. So I went around looking for a mentor, someone that could show me the ropes. Again, I knew that most businesses fail, and I didn't want to make too many mistakes. I'd already made plenty of mistakes in the past and had some failed businesses, some sort of side projects that never worked out for me. So I found a mentor and a business partner, and I invested my last $30,000 with starting a business with him. And it worked really well for about 9 months, and it got to a point where I was traveling around Australia, and it was in the personal growth world, and I started to learn about how I could help people with their mindset, how I could help them overcome things that were holding them back, the pain from the past, and all these sort of miraculous things that these changes that people were making within themselves. And so we were doing quite well, and so I bought my business partner and my mentor a ticket to Fiji. He'd never been to Fiji. Bought him a ticket. And he came back and we did a debrief, and we're having a steak dinner, and he gave me a letter. And I opened up this letter, and it was a legal letter from his lawyer, and it was informing me that I was being pushed out of the business. And therefore, in that moment, I realized I was losing this business that I invested 9 months of my life into, $30,000 of my, the last money that I had. And so basically in that night, I kind of lost, my entire business that I'd sort of built with my business partner / mentor. In that moment, I realized I'd lost it all, but I very quickly realized that I'd gained a lot from that, and I'd gained a lot of knowledge. I then learned how to develop and build a successful business. And so I kind of, retreated back to Victoria, and I was living in the Gold Coast. I retreated back to Victoria where I grew up because I had no money. And my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, we sort of just stayed with my parents for a period of time. And it sort of took us about 3 months to start to kind of lick our wounds and, start pop our head back out and start to consider, maybe we should start to look at building another business. And so the one opportunity I had available to me for an entrepreneur that doesn't have much capital, the one opportunity I thought I could maximize was using the fact that we're in the information age. And so I put on a course, and information that I could package up quite easily that I felt was going to give value to people was teaching people hypnosis and self-hypnosis and help people sort of quit smoking, that sort of thing. So my wife and I put together a little course. We put it on, and we found after a weekend course, we're able to make about $12,000 from it. And so we thought, okay, well, this is something we can start to grow on and build. And that became, that was basically the birth of now our $1 million business called Australian Success Academy. Over the years, my wife and I, or my girlfriend at the time, we sort of spent some time together, and we got to a point in our relationship where we kind of lost that spark. We started to take each other for granted. We started to argue a lot more often, and it sort of hit this point where we felt this big disconnect taking place in our life. But we realized that we really still did love each other. And so we went seeking, again, the experts, from all around the world that were, experts in the area of relationships. And we spent about $20,000 or so on going to all these courses, being relationship course junkies, and then coming back and then sort of putting all the pieces together to really improve our own relationship. And that's sort of how we created the Honeymoon Feeling Forever system. It's like little pieces of all the courses that we went to that really sort of took our relationship to that next level. And so from this wealth of knowledge that we had, I started to realize that the techniques that we were teaching people to improve their intimate relationships were also highly applicable to business relationships. And as a result of applying these in my own business, so we're able to create a tribe of raving fans, and some of the people in the room there I know have sort of come through our courses. And some have invested, you know, significant amount of money and time with us. You know, some up to the area of sort of, you know, $30,000 with us. Sort of spent sort of years, you know, training with us and spending time with us, and become you know, good friends as well. So much so that and they've gone out there and spoken to other people and been sort of advocates for the things that we do, and has really helped us over the years create $1 million business. And the really, I guess, surprising thing for us was we created $1 million business within 2.5 years of starting off the business. And so we went from a small business where it was just my wife and I running it into being, you know, quite, you know, big and successful for where we were hoping to get to. And so from that, I now, as you sort of heard earlier, I now coach business owners and couples and entrepreneurs and, you know, even down to single people, how they can use their mindset, how they can use sort of practical psychology, neuromarketing, and all these sort of principles, bring them together to help them create almost like the life of their dreams in a much shorter period of time than it would normally take them. And that's one of the things I'm really, you know, big on, is how do I, you know, take what I now know and pass it on to others and help them get that same result a lot faster. I know that some of the challenges that I had early on in the business, and maybe some challenges that you are currently facing or have faced. Maybe you feel like you have a really good solution or a really good service or product, and you know it can help solve people's problems. You know it can help them, you know, in some area of their life. You know it's a good deal for them. You know that you're going to be able to do a high quality service for them. But some people, some potential customers, they just don't want to listen, or they're not open to the idea. And I can appreciate how that feels, because, you know, I felt that same way. I've had many people that have been like asking for help. They've been like pleading for help. They're in, you know, that point of desperation. They've tried everything else. And I know I've had situations where I can see they're just 3 feet from goal. They're at that moment where they're at a crossroad. And if they just make that decision, if they can just take that leap of faith, and trust me and trust that what I'm saying is congruent, and that I have their interest, you know, close to my heart, I'm going to lead them in the right way, then they'll get their result. But yet I've had so many people that have then just claimed that, nah, that won't work for me. And nah, it's not right for me. And they sort of walk away, and I've met people years later, and they're still facing that same problem that I know if only they spend a little bit of time with me, that, you know, I could help them through that. And so what I do know is that customers know what they want, but experts know what they need. And it's really about helping your clients or your customers really understand that they might come for something that they want, but because you are the expert in your field, because you have helped people before, or because you are, you know, you have the knowledge, you've been in the business for years, months, whatever it is, you know what is needed. And it's really about understanding that can be 2 different things. What a customer wants and what a customer needs is sometimes 2 completely different things. What I've found is that you need to help your customers fall in love with you, and help them fall in love with your offering as well. And then you kind of need to date your customers a little bit as well. You can't sort of, you know, just meet someone and ask them to jump straight into bed with you. You've got to, you know, spend a little bit of time sort of wining and dining them, and just build up that goodwill and that trust before you really do ask them to, you know, jump into bed, so to speak. So it's really about understanding their psychology and learning how to speak their language as well. One of the, I guess, the common mistakes that I see people make in business is that they get caught up working in the business rather than working on the business. And one of the things I know is that if you want your business to get better, you have to get better first. If you want your customers to fall in love with you, you have to be at a place where you're worthy of their love first. And so this is true both in business as well as intimate relationships as well. And, you know, it applies to couples. Is some people, they get caught up in just being busy, and they don't work on their relationship. They don't work on their business. They just get caught up in the routine and just being busy. And so one of the things is you need to kind of start to take some time, and it's a little bit of discomfort to take some of that time out to work on the business rather than working in the business. Another common mistake that I see some business owners make is they love just sitting in their comfort zone. And the comfort zone is quite nice because it's comfortable. It's something that we know quite, we're quite familiar with it. But if you really want to change, that's not where change happens. Some people are kind of stuck in their ways. They're kind of stuck in that routine. But what I know is that if you aren't growing, you're dying. And the sad thing about, I guess, the current situation we all find ourselves in is all there needs to be is just a technological advancement that could happen tomorrow, and that can wipe out a lot of people's livelihood. And you just look at the self-serve checkouts now, and how much that's reduced the need for human beings to be at supermarkets. And so it's really about focusing on how can you grow your business? How can you push yourself outside your comfort zone? How can you stay up with the latest trends? How can you keep yourself current and being comfortable with discomfort? Especially with so much technology that's around. And I know you're in good hands with Adair. I know Adair's fantastic when it comes to Facebook, and it's such an amazing tool, and there's so much power behind it. Yet I see so many entrepreneurs and so many business owners that just stay away from it because they just feel like it's too hard. And that too hard basket is where there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of people to just learn and be comfortable with that level of discomfort. One of the things I say to my tribe is that the truth will set you free, but first it might piss you off. And that is just knowing that there's some things I need to know. I need to get my head around, and I don't like to feel like that my business is starting to get a bit dusty, but maybe that's the truth. And again, it still applies to couples as well, because if you do what you've always done, you'll get the result you've always gotten. And so, my coaching to a lot of couples is if you want to take your relationship to that next level, and again, even in business, you want to take it to that next level, you have to do things differently. The kind of the final mistake I'll sort of talk about is that some business owners, what they'll do is they'll just play the blame game, and they typically will blame the customer. They'll blame the customer for why that's the reason why it's not working. The customer doesn't get it. And they'll sort of say that to themselves. It'll be like a story they tell themselves. Oh, that customer just didn't understand what I was saying. And they always blame the customer for that lack of understanding, that lack of clarity. What I know is, being someone that really does focus on communication and sort of psychology and the power of language, is that the real, movement that you can make in being more effective in communication is taking that responsibility on yourself. It's knowing that, if a customer doesn't understand it, it's not that the customer doesn't get it. It's that I haven't communicated in the most effective way to allow the customer to grasp what I'm saying. And so it's just knowing that, I am responsible for the effective communication to my customers, knowing that customers are all different. Some customers need to hear things slowly. Some need to hear it fast. Some need to hear it in slightly different ways. And so it's just being dynamic and being flexible in my communication. And that's really recognizing the power of choice. The power of choice is that it's never that the customer doesn't get it. It's that I have a choice as to how to communicate differently tomorrow or again to that customer so I can get a different result. I'll sort of move on to the next area by just saying, look, finally, I do want to make sure that you understand that there's no magic powder, there's no magic potion. The same way in relationships, you can't just drink some magic potion and make someone fall in love with you. The same way, there's no magic sort of fairy dust that's going to make your customers just fall in love with you. It's about taking time. Like I said, it's sort of like that dating approach. It's going to take time, but if you then put the time and effort into it and not force it, it'll just naturally happen to a point where you will have some raving fans. So just imagine, at the end of this sort of quick little presentation, if your interactions with your customers become a lot more connected than what they are right now. And then all of a sudden you start hearing your customers speaking to others and recommending your services without you having to ask them to do it, without having to elicit that from them. And they're just out there just using word of mouth marketing and being great billboards for your service. And then as a result, you're now getting more sales, you're generating more revenue, and hopefully you're saving on your expenses, especially your marketing expenses, because you now realize you don't have to market as often. And that's really the possibility that you can achieve by applying some of these little tips and techniques that I'll be sharing with you tonight. Now, As you sort of heard, I've worked with a number of people. I've helped sort of couples that are at the brink of divorce. There's one couple specifically that comes to mind. They'd been married for 5 years, and unfortunately, the husband had cheated on his wife on the honeymoon, and she knew about it. And so there was this rift in the relationship for the last 5 years, and they were about to break up because it was just too much for the wife. And it was able to help them, forgive and move past that past trauma and find a renewed love for each other and passion for each other, to a point now where 3 years later they're loving life and they're still deeply connected and moving on with their life. And I've helped women that have been gone through domestic abuse, who as a result of that have hated men, and just swore that they would never be in a relationship ever again and never put themselves in that position, and have helped them sort of resolve those past traumatic memories, to step into their own power and realize that they're not a victim, that they're a thriver rather than a survivor, and help them find a love for life, and solve some of those limiting beliefs to a point where they're able to create a space to find someone that was better for them. They're now gone out and found the love of their life, and a number of them, one couple that I'm thinking of in particular, have got married about 2 years ago because she found that love of her life and is now sort of having kids with that man. And so there's amazing things that can happen in intimate relationships, but not only that, having applied these tools in a business setting as well, I've helped wannabe entrepreneurs, like up and coming entrepreneurs that are like just knew that being in a job was not for them. One guy I've helped, I'm thinking of specifically, helped him create a business model and a system that enabled him to become a financially successful international speaker. And now travels around the world and is an expert in his own right. And so there's a lot of amazing possibilities when you apply a lot of these tools, and you really start to be kind of like the top sort of 1% of communicators out there, rather than being sort of caught up in that sort of dusty model. To give you a bit of a big picture as to our Honeymoon Feeling Forever 6-step system. It is 6 steps, and I'll really quickly go through it just so you understand, and I'll sort of take you through a bit of a crash course on how you can apply this in your own business, and then I'll leave it open to some questions. And so the first step is oneself. It's all about knowing that the easiest person to change in the world is yourself, and knowing that as the business owner, as the kind of CEO, or whatever title you have for yourself, you are responsible for the communication and the effectiveness of that communication to your customers, through your emails, through your copy, whatever it might be. And so it's really looking at, what can I do today to really boost my influence with my customers? So that's the first step. The second step is the 2 energies, and it's looking at sexual energies. And what that really means is that every single one of us has the ability to be in a masculine energy, and every single one of us has the ability to be in a feminine energy. And there are times throughout the day, the weeks, months, years, where we'll be one or the other. But knowing that also a customer is most likely to have a sexual energy that is grounded in one way when they come and see us, or they come and speak to us, or they have some sort of interaction with us. And so it's about knowing how to use those sexual energies to make sure that we are communicating the right way to our customer or our client. Then we look at the 3 dimensions, which is the third step. So it's looking at the 3 dimensions of a relationship. That it starts off when we're in self, and that's generally where people get involved in a business. It's all about themselves, about, I want to get away from my job and I want to live a lifestyle. I want more money, so I'll start a business. And so it's all about self. And then it hopefully transitions into trading, where you then trade. I'll do this piece of work as long as you pay me this amount of money. And so it's a trade that happens. And then hopefully it evolves into the higher level. And we'll talk about that third dimension in a moment. Then the fourth step is forgiveness. And, this, it still applies to business. Definitely applies to relationships as well. But in business, sometimes a business owner will be beating themselves up a little bit. They'll beat themselves up for missing opportunities. They'll beat themselves up for making mistakes. And so they'll carry a lot of stress with them. They might sort of have a story that keeps them downtrodden, and this sort of dark cloud that hangs over their head. And so it's about learning to forgive yourself for missed opportunities. It's about learning how to authentically forgive yourself for past mistakes. But then it's also about forgiving others as well. There may be a customer that you may need to forgive. There may be something that's happened that you need to forgive them for as well. And again, we'll talk about that in a moment. Then you have step 5, and step 5 are the 5 love strategies, or 5 love languages, which is more commonly known as. And so it's, again, looking at how you can apply that in the relationships with your customers. And then the final step is the 6 human needs, which are these behavioral sort of driving factors that sort of drive behavior, and looking at how we can position our product or our service to meet our customers' needs as much as possible, so they really do fall in love with us. What I'm going to do is give you a 10-minute crash course, and I'm not sure that there's recording this. Are we recording this? Is this like going to be provided to people later on, or?
Yes,
this
disembodied voice from behind the computer says yes.
Sure, fantastic, great. Well, look, I'd encourage you to take notes as well. It's a really good way of learning. But look, I do understand this is a bit of a 10-minute crash course on the value that you'll get, and I will give you a few little tasks as well, just so you can see how you can put it into action. So we'll start with the first step, and the first step is oneself. And so it's really about focusing on what you can do. And it's really looking at the fact that it's never the customer that doesn't get it. It's always you who doesn't communicate effectively for the customer to get it. And so the task that I would give you to really build your competency in that area and to get some results is to build in a system, or think about planning a system to find out why the customers that don't purchase with you, why they didn't purchase. I can tell you that I didn't learn this until probably about 2 or 3 years into our business. Now, unfortunately, we kind of, we fell into some success anyway. But so I never came from a place of desperation, but I came from a place of optimization. And I thought, you know what? Whilst I know about anywhere from 15 to 20% of the people that that I get to speak to will connect with what I'm saying, there's about sort of 80% that won't. And I thought, well, there's a lot of gold, there's a lot of opportunity in knowing why people aren't ready to say yes to what I'm offering, why they aren't ready to take up this opportunity with me. And so there's a lot of what I'd encourage you to do is really focus on building a system, or having some sort of questionnaire, or even if it's just really grassroots style around just asking people, oh, by the way, I'd just like to know, how could I change this to help you find a value in it? Sometimes that's really how it started for me, is I just tried to get in front of people that were saying, no, I'm out of here. Thanks a lot. See you later. And then just asking that final question, what could I do to change it to make it even more appealing for you? And that helped me refine my own offering to a point where I was able to get, a lot more people to say yes, and a lot more people to see the value in it. I was actually speaking to a guy yesterday who has just started a new business, and he's just got 3 new customers for his business. But yesterday he had 2 of those customers cancel on him, and so they'd said yes, they'd paid some money for the product that he was offering, and then they cancelled on him. And he in the conversation I was having with him, he's like, Shane, I just feel like giving up. I can't believe this is happening. We had a little bit of a coaching session, and he sort of realized that he just needed to fail forward, and every no is just one step closer to yes. And so he sort of found that resilience to keep moving forward. And I said to him, what I encourage you to do is maybe go back to those 2 people and ask them what made them cancel. What was the thing that made them change their mind after they made the initial decision to go along with it. And his response to me was, Shane, now those 2 customers, they're just drama queens anyway. I'm just going to move on. And I just felt like it was a missed opportunity for him, because he then had that mentality to blame the customer. No, it was the customer's fault as to why they cancelled. And so he's missed this great opportunity where, again, that whole power of choice about knowing that there could be something that maybe he could say differently to minimize that cancellation rate. Whereas he's just walking away now thinking, no, they're just drama queens. There's nothing I can do. And I think there's always something that we can do. You know, if we're involved in an interaction, we have an influence, and it's about looking at how can we influence to prevent those cancellations and really make sure that the customers feel comfortable about their initial decision, that they don't have buyer's remorse. So that's the first task that I give you, is just to look at how can you build a system or some sort of checkpoint to be able to find out why people aren't purchasing from you now, and start to collect that information, because it's really good information to start to understand. I'll move on to the second step. So the second step are the two sexual energies. And so it's looking at what energy is your customer most likely showing with you. Now, I could spend a number of hours talking about masculine and feminine energies, and, you know, and I won't because I don't have that much time. But what I would say to you really quickly is just knowing that it's not always associated with gender. There's men out there that are in their feminine energy, and there's women out there that are in their masculine energy. And so it's just looking at, and to give you a really high level understanding of it, some customers are going to respond better to a challenge, which is the masculine energy, and some customers are going to respond better to nurturing, which is the feminine energy. And so it's really about understanding a customer that comes to you, treating them like an individual, but really trying to assess, is this customer going to better respond to me challenging them a little bit, or are they going to better respond to me nurturing them a little bit? Now, it's not to a point where, you know, it's all about the execution of it. So I don't want you to go too far with a challenge and say, I bet you don't want this product, because that's probably not going to work all that well. But it's just about knowing how far you can challenge people and how far you can nurture people before it just gets into that weird sort of space. And again, it's that, you know, those subtle things you can do that can sometimes have a big, powerful impact to really connecting with your customers. And so my task for you for the second step would be to really just start to assess each customer individually when they approach you or when you have an interaction with them, about whether you feel like they're going to respond a little bit better to a soft challenge. And I'll just start with the sort of soft sort of challenges, or whether they're going to better respond to a soft type of nurture. And then, you know, I guess appealing to them in that energy from then on. So that's the second step. I'll move on to the third step. So the third step is the 3 dimensions. And so it's looking at, you know, whether the customer, or whether your relationship with the customer is from self, whether the relationship with the customer is from a trading perspective, or whether the relationship with the customer is from that unconditional love type of perspective. And so some people, what they'll do is they'll look at customers as just walking dollar signs, which is really that first dimension. They're just like, you know what? You've got my money and I want it. And it's really about what's in it for me. And some people are in business, and they come from that perspective, and you probably know people like that, and they're not nice people to be around. They're not nice people to do business with. And whilst they might still be making some money from that, they're using really that churn and burn approach, which is, you know, I don't care, you know, what quality my product is, just as long as I can sell it to you, that's good enough. And that's where some people come from, that self focus. Hopefully, you've learned to sort of progress past that. And you may be coming from, again, hopefully you're in the third dimension, but some people are in that second dimension where they only give as much as they get in return, which is they will only do the bare minimum for that client or that customer to pay the fee. So be like, you know, I'll do, you know, this piece of work if you pay this fee, and they won't do any more. They won't go above and beyond. And so it's really about having this, almost like this unspoken ledger. Sometimes it'll be, you know, a real ledger, but, you know, sometimes I'll have that unspoken ledger about, no, sorry, you didn't pay for that, so I'm not going to do that. Even if it's just an extra 5 minutes, even if it's not going to cost them any extra, some people just won't go above and beyond to really give that added service. But hopefully you'll be in the third dimension, and it's the one I encourage people to be in, even in intimate relationships as well, which is where you make your customers' needs, or even your partner's needs, your needs. So what you try to do is you offer huge amount of value to your clients or to your customers, and trust that what will happen is the universe will work its magic, and your clients will just fall in love with you to a point where they will then reward you with high value as well. And so it's really having the faith that if I give huge amount of value to my customers and to my clients, that I will then be rewarded for that at some stage. The same way that in a relationship is if you trust your partner, that your partner has your needs as their needs, and you have your partner's needs as your needs, it's like you feed each other. You feed each other and neither of you goes hungry because you're looking after each other's needs. And so my task to help you apply this step is to ask yourself, what mindset do you interact with your customers with? And then how can you add even more value to your customers? Add more value than what your competitors are offering. And I would encourage you, because we're in the information age, to think a little bit more globally around how can you offer more value than what your global competitors are offering. And the thing that I sort of coach my clients with is how can they offer non-monetary added value? So value that's not going to cost you money. With I guess the technology, it could be like 10 tips or industry or in your space or whatever you're known for. And you could then send out one tip once a week for 10 weeks and just keep engaged and just nurture that relationship with your audience or with your customers. And so you can have that added value. So things like that, which yes, it might require maybe an hour of time to create those 10 tips, but just think about the scalability or the leverage you can get from that in just keeping your business, your brand, your name at the top of people's minds once a week. Things like ebooks or guides or templates, or perhaps just a VIP list. You offer a VIP list. Can I add you to my VIP list? And you send them, some discounts, or you send them sort of previews to some new offering that you have. And so these are all things that you can really start to add added value to those, to your customer base, so that there is that unconditional love there. So that's the third step. We'll move into the fourth step, and the fourth step is forgiveness. And so it's really about looking at what story do you tell yourself? What story do you carry around? Do you need to forgive yourself for making some sort of mistakes? Or do you need to forgive a difficult customer for just being difficult? Or do you need to forgive someone for leaving a negative feedback on some sort of forum? And it's really about forgiveness. Some people are like, yeah, but I don't want to let that person off the hook, and I don't want to, that person did wrong by me, and I want them to know about it. And forgiveness, when people don't forgive, what it is, it's kind of like they'll drink poison expecting the other person to suffer. Because when people have this story of someone did something by me, or I did something, and they carry this stress in the body, that they are the ones that has been impacted by that stress. They're the ones that they're not in the most appropriate, resourceful mindset to be able to make better choices. And so forgiveness is not a gift to the other person. It's a gift to yourself. And so it's really about just forgiving the other person for whatever they've done, and just being able to move on with life rather than still being attached to that negative experience. So my business partner, a mentor that basically stole one of my businesses from me, I'm so grateful that he did that. To this day, I've completely forgiven him to a point where I'm grateful it happened, because if it hadn't happened, I may not have the amazing life that I have today. I may not have the successful business that I have today. I may not be speaking to you tonight if that hadn't happened. And so it's really about looking for those hidden gifts. It's knowing that if you're going to blame someone for all the negative things, that you also have to blame them for the positive things as well. You can't be selective about blame. And so my task for you would be to think about, well, if it's yourself that you have to forgive, or if it's someone else, it's how can you blame yourself or that other person for not only the negative things, but also the positive things. The fact that you have come through that, the fact that you are now more knowledgeable, the fact that you're now more aware that these things can happen. And it's always looking for that hidden gift. It's how can you change your story? How can you be the phoenix rising from the ashes, rather than just a survivor that's just getting by? I think surviving is no way to live a life. You want to learn how to thrive. And so how can you thrive in spite of what's happened? And one way of doing that is to just learn to authentically forgive yourself or that other person for whatever's happened. Then we'll move on to the fifth step, and the fifth step is the 5 love strategies, or the 5 love languages. And so it's looking at, how does your customer want to be loved? Gary Chapman, some of you may be familiar with his book, The 5 Love Languages, which really did popularize this concept. But there are more love languages than just 5. There's basically infinite amount of love strategies. Gary Chapman made it a little bit more digestible for people to say, okay, there's 5 basic sort of categories. A quick way that I coach people through and I educate people with is just asking, in a relationship, what's one thing I can do today that's going to make you feel more loved? Or what's 3 things I can do today that's going to make you feel more loved? Because knowing that people's love languages can shift and can change. We're not kind of locked in concrete, where it's quite fluid and can change from day to day, from hour to hour, sometimes from minute to minute. And so just by asking that question, what can I do to make you feel more loved today? Or what can I do to make you feel more connected? Or what can I do to make you feel more appreciated? Whatever the word is a really good way to make sure that your partner or customer is feeling that way. Now, it might be a bit weird if you were to say to your customer, what's something I can do for you today that's going to make you feel more loved? But my task for you would be probably not to go down that path, quite literally, but more so to ask past customers, to re-engage with some past customers and ask them, what would they want from you now that's going to make them feel more loved or more connected or more valued, perhaps? And so it's putting together some sort of system or some sort of survey, and you can use services like SurveyMonkey that have a free option. So you can put together a little survey. If you've got that people's email addresses, you can send them an email. You can ask them to go through a survey and let you know what would your past customers be looking for from you that's going to give them more value in their lives. And then you would narrow it down to maybe 3 or 4 of the most common options. And then you would hopefully go about creating those, as long as they're not going to cost you much money, as long as they're sort of cost effective, and being able to then offer them as sort of value add to your customer base. One of the things that we did in our business is one of our brands is the hypnosis certification that we run. And so we teach people hypnosis. One of the naturally what happens is people then say, okay, well, how do I help someone overcome smoking? And so we have a fairly large library of hypnosis scripts as a training tool. What I did is I spent some time asking some of our past graduates what sort of hypnosis scripts would they like. And we found that there were 3 really common ones that they were looking for that we hadn't previously offered. One was depression, another one was snoring, and another one was becoming a money magnet. And so what we did is we put together like a free gift. And so what now happens when people come to our hypnosis weekends is that 10 days after they've attended the course, so they feel like it's all been wrapped up. Yep, they've had a good time, loved it. Thank you so much. It was amazing, changed my life. And they feel like that's it. We've kind of let them go. And then what will happen 10 days later is they'll get an email from us saying, hey, by the way, thank you for playing full out with us. Thank you for having a great experience with us. We'd love to give you this free gift. And then we give them the option to choose from one of those 3 scripts. And so it just gives people, that unexpected value add. It brings our name, our brand to the forefront of their mind again. It's building that goodwill and that trust and showing them that, we do really want to add value to them. We want to give them additional tools. We want to go above and beyond what they expect of us and really surpass their expectations and be better than any other service offering that's out there and better than any other competitor. And so just by looking at how can you find out what your customers are looking from you to get that added value and then creating it can be a really powerful thing for creating raving fans. The final step is the 6 human needs. And so the 6 human needs there's 6 of them being certainty, variety, connection, significance, growth, and contribution. And so it's looking at how can you position your offering, your service based on those human needs. Now, we all have a need for those 6 things. Some of us have a high need for them. Some of us have a low need for them, but we generally have those needs. And so it's like looking at, I guess my task for you would be, how does your offering meet each of those needs? So if someone's looking for some certainty, that they're making the right decision, how can you do that? Now, things like guarantees or money back periods and those sorts of things are ways to add to some certainty. Using testimonials can bring in some certainty as well. And so there's a number of things you can do to really fire off people's certainty around making that decision. It may be some variety that people are looking for. So how can you offer them some variety? Are there different options that they can choose from, different colors, different sizes? Is it different from what's been available out there right now? Is this new and improved and no one else is offering that yet? And so there's some variety in what you're offering. Then it's talking about connection. Well, can people feel connected by using your service and your offering? Do they feel connected to you? Do they feel connected to some sort of group? Is this like if you join this group, you'll be added to this sort of community? And so connection is a big driving force for a lot of people's decision making. Then it's looking at significance. Can you position your product as adding to their significance? Like, is this something that early adopters, decide on? Is this what smart people, decide on? Is it some sort of glamorous sort of option for them? Is it, can you get it in gold? Can you get it, diamond encrusted? I don't know. Other ways to really boost that significance for people in making that decision. How can they become 1%, the 1% of the population? Are they going to be, is this what leaders decide on? So there's ways to really connect it to people's significance. All of us want to feel significant in some way. And then about growth, does it allow them to grow? And also, is there a way to be able to offer them some sense of contribution by taking up your product or your service? So is there some sort of charity that's connected to your service or to your product? There's like 1% or some percentage of their dollar go to some other charity. I think it's a burger shop. I can't remember the burger name now. I think it's Grilled. I think it's Grilled. So Grilled has that option where you go and buy a burger and they give you a little token and you put that token into one of 3 jars, and that then allows the consumer to feel like they're contributing to a community cause, knowing that a portion of their burger that they've just paid for, the money is going to go to that cause. And so that's a way you can really bring in those 6 human needs. So that kind of, in a nutshell, is basically I've taken you through a quick 10-minute sort of crash course on what I take people through in 2.5 days, mostly focused on intimate relationships. But for you guys, I thought I'd give it that business spin to it. Is there any questions that I can answer based on what we've covered? I know I've sort of covered quite a bit and probably gone through it quite quickly, but I'll open up. Has anyone got any questions for me?
I don't know if there's any online. If anyone who's watching, let's see, we've got some people watching online. I'm happy to take questions here as well. No one's got any questions?
No questions. That's fine.
Everyone's done.
Well, look, what I'd say, look, I know I've covered a lot, so you're probably sort of a little bit overwhelmed with information. So, look, I mean, what I can say to you is my tip for you, based on all of those tips, is just start with 1 or 2 that really resonated with you. Don't try and do everything all at once because it might be a bit overwhelming, but just start with like 1 or 2 that you feel like is really achievable for you to start with and just build some momentum. Doing one thing is better than doing no things. And so I just say, just find 1 or 2 things that really resonated with you tonight and just see what sort of result you get. Now, again, I'd also say that just know it's all about the execution of it as well. And so, it may take some time to really find your own flow with it as well. I can tell you that applying a lot of these techniques in my own business has really, taken us to that next level and allowed us to really connect with people on a much deeper level. What I'll probably, I guess, finish up by saying that, I know Adair is offering some door prizes tonight. So I think there's 2 tickets. I think it's 2 tickets we're giving away, Adair, like 2 double passes. We'll be running Relationship Success, which is our course. It's for singles and couples, and even if your partner doesn't want to come along, just by one person coming along that's from a relationship, and get a lot of result from it. So we're going to give away I think it's 2 door prizes, so 2 double passes to come along to our relationship success course. It's a 2.5-day course, so it's a Friday night, Saturday and Sunday. It's happening in Adelaide from the 2nd to the 4th of June. It's at the Sage Hotel on South Terrace. What I'd say to you is, if you're interested in coming along, if you don't win one of the tickets tonight, normally it's $497 per couple. We're doing a special discount because this is the final national tour that we're doing around Australia's financial year. So we've discounted down to $127 per person. If you don't win a ticket tonight, but you still really want to come along and check it all out, what I will do is, because you guys have allowed me to come and present for you, and you give me some of your valuable time, and that's one of the most valuable sort of asset that we have is our time. So I want to reward you for allowing me to speak to you tonight. And I'll say to you, like, if you're interested in coming along the course, if you're from this group, I'll offer it to you for $127, and you can bring a friend or a partner with you. So that's $127 for 2 people. If you're interested in that, Adair's got some information, or Adair knows how to get in contact with me. So just have a chat to Adair, and she'll help you out with that. That's pretty much it from me, unless there are any final questions that have come to mind at all.
Okay. Are you there, Shane? Okay.
Shane,
Yes.
I'm going to draw it in front of you so you
We've
can...
got, hang on, let's just...
Okay, cool.
All right, so we'll just grab it. So we've got 2. This one.
Come on.
The first one is Paul. For you.
Nice work, Paul. Congratulations.
Thank you, Shane.
That's a bugger. I was going to sell him a ticket. Well done. The second one, Neil. There you go. So,
And Neil as well.
Yep, Paul and Neil.
Fantastic.
Oh,
Great. Well, look,
I've got one too that I was going to give an hour's coaching for Facebook. So
yeah, sure, go for it.
I'll just do Steve Drew for that one. So.
Lisa.
Hey, Lisa. All right.
There you go.
There's yours. All right. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Shane.
My absolute pleasure. I would say, look, if anyone wants to get in contact with me, if you've got any questions, you can reach me on Facebook. Just type in Shane Fozard. There's only 2 Shane Fozards in the world. One's in the UK, one's in Australia. You should be able to find me quite easily.
Okay. Beautiful.
So thank you so much for everyone's time. Thanks, Adair, for organising this. It's been an absolute pleasure, and hopefully we get to reconnect some time in the future, and I can, maybe present again on something else at some point.
For
Lovely.
sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you later.
All right. So you go.
Yeah, I'll go and wait for the bar, but if there's no drink when you come back.
Okay. So for those of you who haven't